Yeah, and the whole point of it is that we've got groups all around the country now that are properly active, yeah? And we've got these characters on the run. We have literally got them. We're getting their own documentation. They're having to write, like in Tom's case there, 104 paragraphs for an extension of time hearing, for a possession hearing, right? They're having to really use their brains, and then when they use their brains, and you get it, it's all smoke and mirrors again, and we can break it down, break it down, break it down. So you know, Kai's been doing. We got them on the run. You know, we have, no, we really have. So you know, and it's you know, but there's only a few, but we have, and we're all over the gap. Yeah. You know, we're everywhere. You know, and so we've got to keep some sort of unity. And Coventry's been, as you were saying, Mark, right, it's been a really active place right from the start. As far as I can see.
No, it's just a camera.
Working in Coventry all the time, relentlessly. And then they split into fractions and groups, like, you know, like politics always comes into everything, no matter what it is, doesn't it? Politics always takes the piss out of us and amongst ourselves, you know. But we need to start establishing ourselves as a community, yeah? Because what's happening and what's happened to Craig is the police now are identifying us as free men, right? Okay. Now, a lot of us may have gone through all the free men sort of thought process of philosophy, as I have myself, but I wouldn't consider myself a free man. But if they say you're a free man on the land, what, other than being what, a slave on the sea, you know what? But it's discriminatory, and that's what's happening. And so, if you've got any mindset that's been operating like that, then immediately you're discriminated against, and they'll blackball you, and all of a sudden you'll find your life is falling apart. Even your neighbours, yeah, everybody seems to think that you're something, and it's because they blackballed us. And all we're really doing is we're establishing our rights. That's all we're doing, all of us, yeah. We might have different ideas, but we want justice and fairness, yeah. And the trouble is, we know the law, and these clowns don't. That's really what the truth of the matter is. So there's a lot happening, and we've got this Section 26 of the Criminal Justice Act 2015 coming, which means that each police officer is held to account in his job and his duty. Magic, yeah. I mean, we've got these things. So I mean, and I say, and Kai's doing the peacekeeper stuff, which is, it just means we're all one, really, innit? There's no leaders, there's no this, none of that. They can't cut the head off the snake if there is no head, yeah. And we've all got diverse opinions and diverse things going on in our life, and we're all different. So, but we know that we just want justice and fairness, and we know they're fucking us. They're having us over. And so once we're able to get their own paperwork and tear it apart and take it, well, what's this, what's that, and you know, it doesn't stand to any scrutiny. None of their paperwork does. Absolutely doesn't. So that's where we are with that. We're taking them apart, and so what we're trying to do is get people, and I'm using what John Hurst, what we've been trying to do is set up grand juries around the country, right? So what we've done is we did some in Telford and we've done some in Wales, right? And they've been very successful. And the basic thing is, we can't expect the establishment to investigate itself anymore, right? You know, we've got this Janner stuff going on and all that, yeah, you know, paedophiles investigating. Right, it should be people of reasonable standards. That's what a jury is. And ultimately, if you commit a crime, you end up in front of a judge directing and a jury of your peers. 12 people sent you to prison for life. So the grand juries were basically covered up in the 30s, and I'm not the historical expert on this, right? John is. But they were covered up, because it's a common law thing, they were covered up in the 30s and said, well, these things don't apply anymore. Between the wars, these things no longer apply. But of course, they've just covered it up, right? And when you actually read through how they've repealed it, they've not repealed the presentment, they've repealed the indictment. So a grand jury can't come for an indictment, but it can still make a presentment. So what we're saying is this: if you've been wronged in some way, and when you've gone down to the police station, the police have said it's civil. Oh, it's civil. You know, that's the usual bollocks, isn't it? It's civil, right? So you're able to go to a group of your peers and start the process off. Then, when you go to the magistrate's court to start a criminal trial against their people, you've taken out of the judge's hands anything he can do, because you're saying, right, at the end of there's a jury with 12 of my peers able to find me guilty or not guilty, and in the beginning we've got a jury who's decided that there is a case to answer. Not that anyone's guilty, but based upon the evidence presented before the grand jury, there is a case to answer. And so that in itself takes some little judge sits there, knowing that he can't make the decision, guilty, not guilty, it's a jury further down the road. So we're presenting it to him before the case begins. And so we've done this now, so we've got this active in Worcester next week, and so this is where we're going with it. So we're trying to take all the decision making out of their hands, right?
And it's as you said to me, it's like removing the CPS and putting in 12 people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we can't trust the CPS, but the public are with us. All these cases that are going on are in our favour. The public are with us. They know you can't trust these clowns to analyse themselves, because they're so inbred in their way, you know, that oh yeah, he'll sort that out, they'll sort, you know. And, you know, Operation Tiberius, you know, which the police themselves did an analysis on Freemasonry throughout the country, and come to the conclusion that there are criminal gangs operating throughout the United Kingdom under the banner of Freemasonry. And if you look at the 2002 Act, the cartels, the Enterprise Act 2002, you'll see that it's there for you. So what's happening is, we're bizarrely getting these acts that are in our favour for us to use, and then, but it still seems to be more tyranny. So it's looking in the public arena that we're getting more relaxed in their world, but we're not. We're getting more tightened down. And the trouble for them is that the self-litigants in this country have worked it out. We've all worked it out. You know, everybody's worked out the shit, and it's not hard. The reason, you know, law isn't hard because it's common sense. Common law is common sense.
And every single day, people are waking up to what's going on. How many new people in the last 3 weeks on get out of debt?
Oh, thousands.
1,100.
Yes, yeah. But if you take that one and the bailiffs, and if you go to all these sites, it's thousands. The numbers are massive.
Like 3 weeks, 1,300 people or whatever it was, join that summer.
That's right. For some bit of information, that's why it's important when you meet in groups, that because there might be someone come to that group, we might know somebody who can set off some domino effect going, right, that none of us even can consider. I mean, I don't think that any of us know what's going to happen. All we know is that it's not going to go back in the box. We're not going to wake up one morning and think, do you know what, we're all completely wrong, right? And you know, I'm going to start paying this and that, yeah? It's never going to happen. And it's never going to happen because we've pulled the whole system apart. And you know, from my perspective, because everyone's got their own journey, my perspective was when I was able to examine their documents. Because these chaps who are charging £300 and £400 an hour, 2, 3, 4, these lawyers, I wanted to see what they did to earn that money. I wanted to see what they did, yeah? And then when I was lucky enough to meet Mr. Eber and, you know, and get trained in this stuff.
Who's Mr. Eber?
Mr. Eber's a Jewish guy down in London who wrote a book. He was a billionaire back in the 90s, and he lost 1,100 properties, and they bankrupted him for a £40,000 debt. And he's a Televise chess champion for years. He's a very, very astute guy. He's got nothing now, but all he's done since 1996 is fight the system. And he wrote a book called The Forensics of Legal Fraud, and anyone can get it free online, yeah? And if you get that, you get an understanding, because he goes, as Bali, who's at the back, knows, you go into the words of it, but what he does, he goes into the words of their judgments, right? So that they just fall apart. And because what we tend to do, like with Tom Crawford's judgment here, you tend to pick it up, and which the papers did today, because we went into court today, and they were expecting there to be hundreds of us again, right? And there wasn't. There was only a few of us, right? But there was hundreds of police. There was loads of hundreds, but there was loads of police everywhere. So they over-egged the pudding. And last time they didn't have enough. This time they had too many, right? So who's in control? We're in control because we're dictating the.
And their intelligence is shit.
And their intelligence is shit, right? So there was loads of them there today. So we walked straight through all that, and we went into court. So we were all able to get into court. Now what we did was, through reading through 106 paragraphs of this nonsense for an extension of time, and Mr. Ebert had analysed it over 2 days and just taken it to pieces and find out what it was really about. And so he was granted an extension of time, right, because he was obviously worthy, but he's refused an appeal. And so the paper said through it, oh, he's refused. Well, it was never an appeal hearing, because the judgments are all fine and well, but they're absolutely useless without jurisdiction. You know, like I said, A pissed up judge could sit there and decide that he's going to close Coventry High Street this week, yeah? I've had enough of this, you know what I mean? I'm late for work every morning, I'm closing the High Street. But his jurisdiction, he's got no jurisdiction to make that decision, right, okay? He's got nobody to say to him about it, right? And so the judgments that were made in Tom's case were completely without foundation and jurisdiction. And there's certain areas in here which are real key. So, I mean, are you all aware of Tom's case? Everybody's aware, yeah? So I don't know if you know about this, but I'll read this to you, right? Because this is interesting, right? It's all based on, they're saying that he says, she says, it's the merits of the case. The merits of the case is bullshit, right? You can't take a case, you can't win a case on the merits. If the other side, if there's a rigged wheel, and you go into a casino and it keeps fucking, or you keep throwing dice and they're double six, the casino's for double six, it's a rigged wheel, you can't win, so you can't ever expect to win. You can get the same, but you can't win, right? So they do it very sneakily, but it's okay, it's cool, because, so what they do in Tom's case is this. They've said about the arrears, so this is what it's all about, right? And he says, here Mr. Crawford has a point. I can find nothing on the statements of account which show capitalisations have occurred, although the total mortgage debt figures are more readily understandable. For January 2010, the format of statements of account changed, but it is not easy to see that at any given time what the live account arrears are. At the time of commencement of the possession proceedings, arrears were said to total £1,802.90p, because of course they've got to get all these facts and figures right on their accounting system. That is not a figure that I could identify from the statements of account. So the judge is admitting that the figure's wrong. When asked where it had come from, Miss Sandals, Bradford and Bingley's barrister, yeah, told me that it came from the computer. Listen to this. As computers should be our slaves and not our masters, such a response is not satisfactory. So the judge in that one line is saying that anything that's come out of that computer without someone to support and back it up ain't worth a carrot. Well, which is what we've been saying all along, right? But you can go through, 100.
That would now be case law, wouldn't it? That a computer is not evidence of anything.
Yeah, we can refer to that. And in fact, what we've done is, in this judgment, someone else who I've had a problem with, a barrister, a solicitor, went to the solicitor, someone in France came to me and they've had a problem with that solicitor, and we've used their case in this. So what we're doing is we're shepherdising these cases to a certain extent, because you'll find out, around Coventry, you'll find out that if you're a family law case, we could probably tell you which judge is going to appear it, because he's going to stitch you up. Yeah? If it's for a repossession, you'll find out which judge it is he's going to stitch, because they've got gatekeepers working on all this stuff. So that's exactly where we know that, look, we know them. Do you know what I mean? But what's happening is this, and I've used analogy because I'll try and break it down for people. Imagine if you're going into a house of mirrors, right? And there's a door entrance here, and you're walking in, there's a massive mirror here. And as you're walking in, for some reason it looks like you're walking out on the mirror. And we're all thinking that, well, I'm walking out the building. And someone like Mr. Eber's telling us, no, you're just walking in a straight line. But you keep see, all you can see is the reflection, and you think, all this stuff is all bullshit. It's bullshit. And I tell you that, I could have gone and studied at university, and it wouldn't have been in my interest to tell you it's bullshit, because I make 300 quid an hour. But it's crap. All this stuff is crap. It's all smoke and mirrors, every bit of it. And it can be pulled apart, So the judge has covered his ass there. So when we went to court today, Tom said, he said, I suppose you're disappointed with what's happened, right? Because of course, Tom originally appealed. And one of the slides they do is this. If you appeal, or if you say you don't appeal, if you haven't got any sense, you ask for it to be struck out, because it's based on misleading, inaccurate and false information. If there's been any civil case where there's been misleading, inaccurate or false information, you can go to the court and say, right, I'm making an application to strike it out, because it was based on misleading, inaccurate and false information. That's not an appeal, and it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost a penny to do that. But when you do that, what we found was happening, you're going into the case, and you get, one of the judge has turned it into an appeal. So I've fallen foul with this, that's what I'm able to say about it. So I've stood there with 3 barristers and me in court, arguing for 6 hours with a public gallery full of people. And at the end, he said my case had no merit. So, well, what have we been arguing about for 6 hours? But the reason it had no merit was because my appeal was at a time, and before you can have an appeal at a time, you've got to apply for an extension of time. So the case had no merit. Yeah? So they're just taking the piss out of us. They're trying to think they're clever in that. But now, now we know that. Now we know that, And then, so all these things, and we're closing them down in every angle. So, so this is the point with the grand jury.
The thing is, we've got people, because not everybody's got that brain that can pick those words apart, and they just fall apart like a, like a game of...
But I just talk to this guy here, I can't sit with a computer, right? I can stand in court and argue the toss with them, right, okay, and basically try and bring them to common sense understanding, but if you give me a computer, we've all, different horses, different courses. I can print this shit out. We're all different. We all got different abilities and different tools, and that's our strength. And the worst thing you can do in these circumstances is start to get leaders. You need organisers in certain areas, but they just all coordinate. That's all you need. Yeah. Because when you start breaking into fractions and start arguing with each other, and the politics becomes it's showbiz. It's bollocks. Yeah. And that's the problem for us. We've all got to unite, realise that there's some people that can support things that others can't, and try and work together. Since I've come out with the fraudulent document, when I did the fraudulent document angle, it was a very serious thing I was doing. I knew what I was doing when I was doing it, and I knew that it was all fraudulent, and it wasn't. Everyone knew it was fraudulent, but I thought, well, we may as well just come out and say it. But I couldn't, because I couldn't support what I was saying. And then when I met Mr. Ebert and understood that he could prove what I knew, I thought, wow, right, okay, so I'm going to listen to this guy and I'm going to let him train me in an understanding of what he's doing to a degree, yeah? And then all of a sudden it becomes great. We want their paperwork. Before when I was getting envelopes, or return to sender, it was like these are barrel of that and gold. And we've got them on that now. We can go down to the courts and examine their paperwork. And examining their paperwork is brilliant, man. You wouldn't believe it. And they'll fight and they'll kick and they'll struggle. And when you send in the request, we know we set a trap for them. This is not set a trap, but it's playing a long game when you're doing this stuff. So we know in the initial thing, we put in a request to see their stuff. Okay? And I don't get too wrapped up in the semantics of stuff, right? Because at the end of the day, a lot of these people don't. It's like I say, they don't know the words that they're using because they're in a culture where they've been doing this for so long they don't know what the fuck they're doing, right? But you go down there and we say, right, this is a request and notice to see my file, and we use two of the acts, 542, 541, and the County Courts Act. So they're put on notice then that they should supply access to the case file, that you're entitled to every document inside that file because it's your file. And under the County Courts Act, it should have a fee paid and a seal on it. That's quite simple. Everybody, virtually to a man, will get back off that. It's been lost, which is great, because it's been lost or destroyed. That means it doesn't exist. So great. There's nothing to argue about. The judge has said you can't have it. What's it got to do with the judge? The case has gone on, and then once the case happens, it goes to administration in the court. This is a court administration matter. This has nothing to do with the judge. Why is he getting involved? Right? So that's good. It's good if they say that. You should apply under the Freedom of Information Act. That's more bullshit. But what we've done from all over the UK, we've got the same responses of all these people, from Bournemouth to Sunderland to Norwich to all over, right? Because this is their way they try and attack it. Then you go down with an upgraded version, because you say to the court staff now, this is why they're getting rid of the court staff, you're going to say, excuse me, but you've got a statutory obligation and a statutory duty to provide me these documents, and you're not. So I've got the right to take an inference that there's something shifty going on, or they don't exist. And as they say to you now, you're not obliged to say anything, but if you don't say anything, a jury could take an inference. Well, I'm taking an inference that under Section 3 of the Fraud Act, it's fraud by failing to provide, right, okay? So it's concealment, right? At that point, every time we've not had a failure, they always hand it over. And then when they hand that file over to you, that's brilliant. They'll sit in a room with you, you give them 10 quid for the first 10 documents you want out of that file, and it's 50 pence for every document thereafter. Well, the file might be like that, Doesn't matter, right? But the most important document, right, is the last one, is the first one that set the file was created from, right? And I've got them in there. I'll show them in a bit, right? So you turn over all the file and just get to the first one, because that case was created on that document, that claim form. Now that claim form has to have a seal on it, and it has to have proof of a fee paid.
Describe the seal, generally.
Oh, look, I've got them in there. They give you button stamps, right? In these circumstances, there probably won't even be anything on it at all, which means it hasn't been through the court. They've been horse trading me your life in some private room somewhere. And so, but you may as well get 10 quid's worth, so you may as well get a judgment or an order out. So what you do at that point, you sit there and you say, excuse me, can you give me the caseman printout? Right? Now the caseman printout doesn't cost you anything. All they do is type into the computer the number, the case number, and out comes a printout. And they only charge you for copying documents, not for the original documents come out. Now when you get that out, it says case created, and it says when the case was created, and it will say to you all the filing, so things have gone in, things have gone out, there's been a pre-trial hearing, it gives you a complete menu, and I've got loads of them in there, if anyone wants to see, of what's gone on. It's like a bank account statement of what's gone on in your case, in your individual case. And when you get that, it's gold dust, because you will see at the end, I won't say all cases, but I haven't come across one that hasn't said right, but in most cases it will say, no judgment, no warrants recorded. So you think, oh, well, the next stage, we were waiting for them to say, wow, that's because we never put judgments and warrants on this sheet, or whatever, right, okay? But of course, because we've had such high numbers of them, we found that there have been warrants, and there have been judgments, so they can't use that. And what they've done is they've retreated into this position now, whereby if you went to Coventry County Court, you could go to Nottingham County Court, they're all different county courts, right? What they've done is they've amalgamated them into the county court. So the county court now is the county court. So if you go into Coventry, your documents, they say, oh, we don't do that, oh, the judge has said this, or the judge said... So excuse me, because in Bournemouth, in Brighton, in Newcastle, they've done this. So you can't say that anymore, because you're the county court, not county courts. So we've gotten bang to rights on all this stuff. And I mean, I don't know where it's going to go, to be honest with you, because I mean, every day, I mean, I'm quite discreet where I don't hide myself, but I've not got a website, I've not done anything like that, you know, and so if you want to get hold of me, it's fairly hard, really, okay, but people track me down like a dog, right, and I've got stuff from 8 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock at night, and it's all the same stuff, and people have gone down examining the case files, people have gone, and the whole thing, then they realise there's never even been a court case. Well, of course, the unawake are waking up, because all of a sudden, they go down and they examine, and then they'll say something, well, there's something dodgy here, do you know what I mean? And the court staff are all in such a culture that, oh, this is just standard procedure. Well, standard procedure isn't standard requirements. Standard requirements is, it's got to have a seal, it's got to have a fee paid, otherwise there's been no court proceedings. And so, we've gone bang to rights. So I don't really know where all that's going. So, what do we do about it? So do we go around seizing buildings? But that's what they want, don't they? They want us to fall out with them, right, and cause trouble. So what we're doing, and which I'll let Kai take the floor on this, but is the peacekeeping thing, it's just a symbol of us keeping the peace. You know what I mean? So where do we go with it? Because they always still rule against us. It's like naughty children, and you keep going to them and telling them to put their toys away, and they keep playing with them. And they, so what we did with Tom's case, we went there, specifically for them to put right what they've done wrong. We got all the evidence that there hasn't even been a court case, so just put it right. Yeah? And of course, they can't do that. So what they do is they do it with smoke and mirrors by saying, we're going to put pages of this out.
It's all about face. They can't lose face.
That's what
so
that is all about.
40 pages.
That is all about.
Somewhere in there will sneak a line where it gives you what you want, but we don't lose face.
Well, if you look at MSM today, they're taking it. They're all saying Tom lost the case and he's now up for eviction, which is complete and utter bollocks because that's the way they've accepted it.
Well, I was on the phone to the press today, and I said, Salon counted 13 times, where I actually said he's lost his application for extension. I said, no, he's won it. have you got the document in front of you? She said, yes. I said, right, turn to the final page and read this. The order that I make is that permission to appeal out of time is granted. Can you read that? She said, yes. She said, but it says, but permission to appeal is refused. I said, yes. Because there was nothing to appeal. Because a judgment without jurisdiction, you don't have to appeal it. There's nothing to appeal. So, but it looks on the surface that, so he's given him, yes, your case is worthy of having an appeal. Here's an extension of time. But the appeal that we haven't heard yet, you can't have. Well, no, because there's nothing to appeal.
Question. So, do you think that press association has rang the judge and said, how do we report this?
I think the way it looks in there is he lost the case, and it's deliberately done. Sorry?
It's not only that case. The more you get into this stuff, you'll find absolutely hundreds of cases
Yes.
that they're all just...
Let me explain. Barry, let me explain to you what. Okay, because what you said there is just where I was going next. Right. So imagine the scenario. Tom goes in there as a layperson or with someone with a normal brief, right? Who's not no good, and they'll say, "Oh, you've got to appeal this. You've got to appeal this." Right. Now, so he appeals it. What a mug that he'd be to do that. Because imagine if me and you had a boundary dispute, right? And we're all supposed to be operating civilly here. And say we had a dispute of some land, and I won the dispute. But then years later, we discovered that, oh God, my old man had actually sold the property to your old man back in 1996, and I found the documents. I would ask for an appeal on your behalf to put the wrongs right. So if Tom appeals this thing, right, he could put himself in a position where he's appealing something under those conditions, and that's the whole slant of all this stuff.
Against himself.
Exactly. You don't realise, you read the words, and you leave all this alone and think, oh, and you just come to the end, oh, I lost it, I'm appealing it, and all of a sudden then, you appeal against something that you've won, without realising it. Because they have to enforce this shit. It's all very well someone saying, I'm going to have your house, well, fucking come round and get it then. And when you do, make sure you bring the right paperwork. Because if you don't, we're arresting you. You know, we're arresting you. And we've got these tools now. We've got this section 26 of the Criminal Justice Act 2015. For the police, when they come round, I mean, you know, we need something like laminated cards or something. So the police straight away, yeah, who takes responsibility for this today then? Right, you're all your bailiffs. Who's taking responsibility? The police, you're all taking responsibility, are you? Fine, right, so we know where the liability lies, yeah? Right, you realise about this, so put them on notice of the Act, the New Justice Act, where he is responsible for his actions as a police officer. You realise about this. Section 26 of the Criminal Justice Act, 2015. Pardon?
It says Coventry.
Yeah.
So, is there anyone here, because we're Coventry, so is there anyone here, and we're forming a group, can take it on board and just say, we need laminated copies?
Yeah.
We're going to sort all that out. When you come into the Peacekeeper bit, we've got loads of network, we've got a big website and an app getting built, so you'll all have that information.
Because what they're going to do with this, they're going to try and close down, because we've been successful stopping these bailiffs, right? But ultimately, the response crews and that have been stopped loads of stuff going on, and other people are doing their own stuff now. It's getting really good, right? But they're going to try and close us down as terrorists. We know where it's going, don't we? We all know where it's going, right? So we have to be prepared for that, because as far as I'm concerned, the Conservative Party is a terrorist organisation. You know, UK Evict certainly are a terrorist organisation, go around evicting people, right? So we've got to go there and realise that we're playing with donuts. Who's in charge? Who's responsible? Whatever the situation. Top copper, bailiff, whatever, right? I'm making you aware of this. I'm making you aware of this. Right, where are we now, right? And give me the documentation. This is the one, you know, I mean, at Tom's place, on the 2 occasions at Tom's place, I've been there with the keys. With the key, I said to Tom, I'll give them the keys, they bring the right paperwork. He said, no, do that. Right, so if you want the keys, you can have them, but bring the right paperwork. But if you come with the wrong paperwork, we're arresting you. You know, and we've got section 135 of the County Court Act to arrest them under, you know, using fraudulent instruments. Completely. But the trouble is the bailiffs don't know that, do they? And the coppers don't know that.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah, of course it is.
So I'm right. sort of like a bit. But ultimately, anyone can do a common law arrest. So that is essentially the power we are harnessing. Yeah, we are going to basically set up a police force that works for us. That's essentially what this is. Yeah, we are looking at what we need to do is we know the police that we've got now don't work for us. They work for the corporation, the Crown, whatever you want to do. They do 2 or 3 oaths, declarations, all the rest of it. We know they are set up. Their hands are tied, even, to set up the common purpose training they do and all the rest of it. So that is just the way the indoctrination they have comes. But ultimately, it is any human being's right to a common law arrest. So what we want to do is set up peacekeeper teams in every single county of the UK. Plain and simple, right? And these peacekeeper teams will work as a team, as a unit, to fight against this crap that's going on. And what the peacekeeper teams will do is they will all collaborate evidence. That's going to be one of your parts, because you are essentially working as a policeman. As you know it, that's what you're working as. So you've got to collaborate the evidence, get the evidence together for somebody that has committed a harm. You then take it to your grand jury that is going to get set up very shortly, which you're also going to work on getting sorted. The grand jury can then process the complaint or the evidence that you've had and issue a warrant, or it will go further on to a Crown, whatever way it goes. It only works for our good. Because we stand under law, the proper natural common law, God's law, whatever you want to call it, do no harm. Yeah? That's ultimately what it is. But the people in each community now need to stop the bickering, stop the division, come together. Everybody in this room is from Coventry. Well, I know there's a couple stragglers, but you're all from here. So you should all know, talk to each other, band together, and get this sorted. It's that simple. I've got to stress that, it's that simple. You guys can basically start a change in Coventry, which is an amazing, amazing thing. But you've just got to band together. You've got to realise that each one of you guys in this room is now, if you want to be involved, part of the team. Yeah, we've obviously already talked to Mark here. He's well briefed up. He knows what's going on. There's no leaders in this. There's no leaders at all. So there's no sheriffs, no deputies, none of that bullshit. Right? We don't play them games. We're all here as humanity against a tyrannical machine, which is what it is, that wants to fuck you, fuck you, fuck you in any way possible that it can. We have got to unite. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. If we unite, we unite, we get... The only reason for the peacekeeper symbol is just so that they recognise that we know that they know we know. So if we're standing in front of them, they go, right, hold on. Right, these guys, yeah, they know the shit, and ultimately, if we act misconduct in public office, they're going to know, and bang, we're up for a charge. Misconduct, life imprisonment.
And we're making no more law than they will at the end of the day.
And we're going to fucking make sure they stick to it, yeah, with the evidence and the, what we do. But it's all about uniting, guys. It really is at this point. We all know how corrupt the system is. There's no point going. Tom has never got, I mean, bless, he had the best outcome possible today, did he not, yeah? But there's 1,000 other cases today that didn't go that way, yeah? And tomorrow they're getting evicted.
And it's all about confidence, right?
You know what I mean? So you're not going to get recourse in a court.
In each town.
Absolutely.
You've got to look after
But
first
we have the evidence now to go and arrest every single judge in Coventry. We know they're committing harm. Every single bailiff office, every councillor in the town hall has committed a harm of some shape or other. Your sergeants, your upper sergeants, your whatever you want to call them, wankers. Yeah, they've all committed common law harms. Every single bloody last one of them. And all you guys have got to do is sit together, work out who's going to do what, who's going to gather what evidence, and who's going to take it to the grand jury that you're also going to set up.
But, see, if I can help you on
Yeah,
this,
jump
right?
up, jump up.
Because everything's about confidence, right? Okay? If my son back many years ago was up for an attempted murder charge up in Manchester, right? Okay, my son's 30 odd now. And he wanted to stay out for Christmas. Right? And the case was, trial was coming up before Christmas. And he said, and they've organised a trial with people and all this. And he said, oh, I've got to stay out for Christmas. I said, look, just get it over with and get the time done, you know, whatever's happening, because he wasn't going to be done for that. Like, he was going to be done for a lesser charge. But just get it sorted. No, please, I've got to stop. And I'm on the way up to court. He said, is there any possible way that I can get it adjourned? I said, well, it's trial. You know? He said, not anything. And there is. If you've lost confidence in your legal team. So I said, have you lost confidence in your legal team? He said, your barrister, your solicitor. But if you've lost confidence, and you tell them you've lost confidence, not just in the barrister, but you've lost confidence, right? They can't move forward. So he went in there and said, I've lost confidence. He said, oh, you lost confidence in your barrister, we'll change your barrister. No, I've lost confidence. And he stuck to it. And they remanded him in custody, so I went and put a £10,000 bond for him down at Chepstow Police Station, right? But he got out for Christmas, right? So it's all about confidence. Now what we can do is, we can form into groups, but if we're not confident, we can't move forward with confidence. Yeah, we need to be confident in what we're doing. And so what we're saying is this, if there are towns in this country where there are active groups, like there are in Coventry and Nottingham, serious groups, right, then I would want them to move forward with confidence. We can't move forward otherwise, right, okay? So we have people like John Hurst who's training me, because we need training in certain areas. Taking witness statements isn't it sort of like, oh yeah, what are you going to say? Oh yeah, we have to do it by the book, right? So we can properly present it, right? So we all need training, but we all need confidence that there are people who know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and they know how to do it.
We've got access to that.
And we've got you've got access.
We're not
to
just going to abandon you at this point. We're hoping now you all get together after this and sit and go, right, what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's what it's about.
And then
yeah.
when you've got, we need basically you guys, you need an independent jury members, yeah? So you need to get some sort of little advertising campaign going, whether it's free or leaflets or whatever it is, whether it's, I don't know, so that you can get a grand jury in between 12 and 24 people. Yeah.
The boys in Southern Ireland have been doing this for a while, you know,
Yeah.
Ben Gilroy, they've been getting groups together and all that, okay? And they're very active. Southern Ireland is brilliant. They're way ahead of us, you know. I never thought that the people in this country were actually going to get where we are now. And but we're there, yeah? So all we need to do is, look, you might have different opinions, and you might think that's crap or that's crap, but ultimately we work with the tools that we've got. And, you know, I can say to you that, you know, there are people who do know their stuff who are able to give assistance. So if you get a grand jury together and you get it diarised, we do it properly. And what we've been doing with the grand juries is John Hurst has been going around and he's been saying to the jury, right, these are your duties. And your duty is to do this, do that. Are you all sworn to do that? Yes. And then in comes I, you know, when it was being me, and I've laid the presentment before the jury, and I've given them the evidence, and I've passed it around. And we've had a failure. We had a failure in Telford, and it was my case that we had a failure on. We had a failure because the procedure was wrong, and one of the jury members misinterpreted what John had told him. They thought he was prosecuting a judge, which he wasn't. But that's going to happen, and that's why they're between 12 and 23 people. So it's good to get more than 12 because the majority decision wins. But again, John would come and instruct the jury on their duties, and then if you've got problems and you've had cases, we can then put them into the system. And if there's a judge who wants to sit there and say that he's a person of reasonable standards and he's going to rule against 20 people or 16 people that have ruled that there is a case to be heard, then so be it, so carry on, okay? But you're fully commercially liable for your actions in this matter. So that's what, you know, but that's what we've got. So we've got to get strength from that and not diversify. Because look, we're working against one big fucking machine, right? And there's, you know, but there's more of us than them, and there's more of us gaining every day, traction every day. So let's keep this thing going, man, yeah? And if you guys say that you want to convene a grand jury in July, say, right, okay, and deal with a load of cases, we can come up here, John can instruct the jury, and all we've got, no one was alive in 1933 and was at a grand jury, right? So we're dealing with historical content, right? Well, I put John's mind, and people like Michael Bernassia, who don't necessarily have the same opinions on this. But great, because we can only benefit from them communicating and coming together with a decision, can't we? Yeah. So we all work together, yeah, all of us, and get the thing sorted out, and then we can hold a grand jury, and it'll be, you know, and the presentments are laid properly so they can't be torn apart, and we do it better than they do, because when it comes to their paperwork, they don't cross the T's, they don't dot the I's, we do, yeah. So.
Yeah, so I mean that is ultimately it in a nutshell. You know, we are going to take over or act as a shadow to what our police are doing, but we are going to put them on their oath 110% because we know the law better than them idiots. You know, that is ultimately what we're going to do, and if they don't stick to it by the letter, they will end up with a charge on them.
I mean, I've always thought never underestimate your opponent. You're a mug. Anyone who underestimates their opponent is a complete mug. But unfortunately, all we're getting on with police officers are mugs. You know, and I don't say like they don't know. I mean, I'm not saying all of it, but I mean a lot of them, they just don't know the score. Yeah. Well, they should know the score. They should know their basic fundamentals of what they're doing, right? And if they're supporting actions, which are statutory actions, yeah, they should know. Oh, well, I'm happy that that's correct. Well, I certainly ain't. Okay, and I can show you A, B, and C. If you're prepared to be under full commercial liability for responsibility in this, then great. Yeah, but this paperwork ain't correct. So, I mean, we've just got to keep the ball rolling. That's why Coventry is an important place.
If I can just interject about Coventry specifically, right, and even though I distanced myself from it and all the rest of it, but when Coventry Common Law Court was formed, which some of you have heard of, they did a lot of legwork, which I'll give them credit for. And there are police officers in that station on Little Park Street that have, and I will tell you this, that have said to us on the quiet, behind their hand, get that Magna Carta, start enacting it now. You ain't got no time. And they've said that to us, to our face.
This is the thing. No matter what you think, there is police working for our forces that know what's going on. 110%. But their hands are tied. And even if they've got damning evidence of, I don't know, child abuse, which I bet there must be so much out there, but they can't enact it. Yeah, because they've been told by the Freemason, hierarchy, whatever, you can't do that. Yeah.
And I promise you, even those officers that have said behind their hand, get off that Magna Carta, understand it, and get on with it now. Right
This is the key.
These guys are still slaves to their masters, and they're collecting information, they're collating intelligence on us. We've got nothing to hide, so we don't care. We don't give a shit, right? But these guys are there, and if we can get them on site, which they seem like they are, right? Our path is going to be much smoother when it comes to what Kai's saying about arresting people, handing them over to the police, because they've got the equipment, they've got the facilities to deal with these people.
We put them in a position that they can't do anything but.
Yeah.
They can't do anything but. If they've got a proper signed sealed warrant from a grand jury and they've got a criminal there, let's use Alison Saunders per example, right? We've got her, they've got the charge sheet, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to process her, or you're going to commit misconduct in a public office? What are you going to do?
Now, in another city, right, they will process her and then open the back door and off she'll go. Okay? In which case we've got another fire act. But in Coventry specifically, I think if we're careful and we stay, we stay as...
We've got to stick to the law. And
I think they will process those people for us.
They're not going to have a choice, Mark. They're not going to have a choice.
No, but I'll tell you
I
what,
think it's going to be easy.
In any business place you ever work in London, there's always a handful of not very nice people. They all get headlines. We've seen that for decades. And that tide's turned. So you're empowering the guy who always did everything right. And he's going to say, yeah, you know what, I'm sick of that guy. Everybody hates that guy, but yet he's managed to go up. You mean I get one up on him? Well, please,
Exactly, Barry. Exactly.
That's the confidence thing, right? Okay, that's why we move forward with confidence, because anything I, for my little part, know is yours, right? Anything you know is, look, other than your sex life, everything's transparent, right? Okay, we're just trying to get on with this shit, right? So we use whatever tools we got to do what we can do, yeah. And so everybody's important, right? Then there isn't a leader, there isn't a head of the snake, right? Or we're just people who have been wronged, yeah? And we're going to put it right. Independent of our positions, and I've been in stuff when there's been bikers, you know, Hell's Angels and grannies, yeah? And, you know, and like in Birkenhead, we identified each other by umbrellas back in them days. We wouldn't need the umbrellas now, because we can just look at each other and we know, don't we? You know what I mean? We know, don't we, who's who and what's what. You've got to say a couple of lines, haven't you? You know, 9/11, or two or three words, and you know if you got who's with you is with you. Yeah. So we're there already, really. Yeah. It's the spirit of the moment. You know, it is. You know, we're in historic times, and we've got to push it forward. You know, and that's what we're saying. And if Coventry, as a place, can actually get themselves a group of people, and then how interesting to go and get members of the public to come and sit as a grand jury. Now, you know, brilliant. We can use that tool. Go on.
So yes.
Yeah.
Right. So exactly what you said. That would be very interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So my little contact in our own little court in Coventry. So actually, I just wanted to hand.
This is Ballyman.
Yeah, I know Ballyman. Yeah.
But I'm local to here.
Yeah, he's local.
Not that everybody knows me, but if you don't mind me asking, who's actually from Coventry? Stay close. Don't disappear. Yeah. Right. Okay. So basically, I had a little contact in the court here. I won't say which one. Who basically filled in the little gaps that were missing. And the only thing I'm waiting for now is I fit every single criteria for opening our own court within their court to actually get a judgment which is actually expressible, not only by you, I don't want to take your competition away, actually also by their own bailiffs. So I also, at the other end, I've got a choice. So Guy's got a problem, he's come to the court's got a judgment, and I say, could use him, or I could use Dan. How much pain do I want to cause, or what do I want to do? I get a choice. And that's what's been missing all the time. It's choice.
Well, what Barley's saying is because ultimately this is the situation. Inside the court system, they've got all the tools that we can use once we empower ourselves. They've got a thing called the taxing team. And the taxing team are part of impaneling juries. They're the ones who write out the people to get the juries in, okay? So what I've done in Hereford Court is I've gone there and I said, I want to hire the court for the day. Oh, yeah, no problem. You know, this is, they're hiring the court, right? And I said, what it is, we were going through an old case, we're going to impanel a grand jury, and we're going to read the transcripts of the case onto the record and see what an absolutely isolated independent grand jury would have made of it in preference to a judge. And they were very, very interested, right? But once we gain in numbers and we gain in confidence that we've got people who can put these things together, then we approach the taxing team. Hi, we got you to impanel the grand jury for us, please. But there you go. And off we go. I mean, we can use their tools, and I'm sure there are people inside their world that will be really happy that they can stick it up there.
So, I'm sure it's obvious, but I'm just going to say it to people in the street. Do you realise what's going on? What we've just witnessed there. We've got not only the highest court in the land.
The court staff told me the missing gaps. The court staff. Yeah. Nobody else. I didn't go on to another website. They told me.
You couldn't buy that in gold. You couldn't. And then we've got the cleverest people that know their paperwork like better than they do themselves. And then we've got a force, us, right, that are now got to be empowered, not afraid to go and enforce what all these guys were.
You're obligated to.
Yeah.
Under common law, you're obligated. Yeah. We know these criminals are there and the acts that they've committed. So there's 630 MPs that need arresting, guys, for committing treason. Straight away, we've got them back to rights.
It's only the criminal. It's only criminals and cowards that don't uphold the law, right? Somebody, I don't want to arrest that geezer. He's only kicking an old granny down. You know what I mean, right? Or it's criminals and cowards, right? Well, we ain't criminals and we ain't cowards. So what does that leave? Where does that leave them? I mean, we've really won it. We just don't know yet. And I mean, what I'm saying to you is Nottingham, Coventry, and Nottingham, basically a boiling. You know what I mean?
I think it was. I missed that one. Was it a couple of weeks ago for Tom's?
Yeah.
But where I think it was a powerful thing when I went week after for Salon's thing. where I sort of asked the security guard, and I said, "Oh, was there allegedly 1,000 people?" He went, "Maybe more." And I went, "Oh, really? It's nice to hear somebody else's thoughts." And I said to him, "So what exactly kicked off? What was happening?" He goes, "I don't know," but before he knew it, they were saying, "Do your job."
That's right.
Do your job. That's all he remembered.
The last thing I'll tell you what,
I remembered.
so the last thing I'll say about this was when we were in the court, because I was trapped in the court, because I was basically going to arrest the judge if he came to a decision. That's why he didn't come to a decision for 6 hours. And everyone was going to come in. That was where we were, really. If he didn't. But when everyone started shouting, "Do your job," right, he was sat there like this, and you could see he was getting really uncomfortable because the public, his boss, out there, is shouting, "Do your job, do your job," and he was like, he goes, "Oh, I can't deal with this, I'm off," you know what I mean? And he legged it out the room. This is where we got him. So we've got him. So, I mean, let's get together, and if you guys want, we can get people here, we can to give you confidence in what we're doing is right, and that people, police officers, lawyers, you know, we can get them here who are working with us now and get everybody confident. Well, listen, I'm just doing this, but I know people who are doing other things, and I'm confident they're successful.
Right. Do you mind grabbing your drinks? We need to step through another room. Just they need to set the bingo up.
And then your own little kind of I don't know, tennis court-sized grassland where you camp, or we can just all sit in the cabin and have a beer or whatever. But we held some of the Coventry Common Law Court meetings up there, and it was fantastic. You build a fire in the corner and have a barbecue, because then we can sort out between us who needs to do what. I'm just the gob at the moment, right? But somebody might be better off at this, better at this. As long as we stay in touch and we can form that group, and we can do a little bit, because we need to find people that are going to be taught how to take statements. And those are the guys that we're going to rely on, to go out and gather information. And the other guys
There's nothing more powerful than, just imagine a crime of a killer. And then a mate down there taking a statement, a guy who's doing the report, there's another guy doing the enforcement on the other end. That's it.
What I always say to people, when it becomes to be the problem, right, and this is what Tom Crawford, right, the reason Tom Crawford's thing happened really was because Tom, being a totally honest geezer he was, got onto a camera and just took the weight off his back and said what he wanted to say to the camera, and it attracted everybody, right? And anybody who's been involved in anything, this nonsense that's going on, being robbed and raped by this establishment, should go onto camera, and it's cathartic. You actually get a burden off you, and then anybody who's interested in your case can watch it. If Barney's done a 15-minute video, then all of a sudden, rather than trying to talk, I've got an upgrade into it, and then you're on it, yeah? You resonate with it straight away. And we've got to the point now where we don't need to be disputing and arguing over shit, right? Hey, look, we're all on the same fucking platform here. We're all getting shit. Let's sort it out, you know what I mean?
That's the thing is, like India and Irish culture, they used to divide and conquer, but really, there's every reason in the world. I could go around here and just point out everybody and say, well, I don't like your clothes, I don't like your red hair, you're the wrong colour, you're the wrong this, and you're wrong that, and you're brown. There's every reason in the world to hate everybody around here. But there's one reason why we should all stick together. Yeah. Because at least I have, I don't know you from Adam, but actually I wouldn't want to do any harm to you. That's just basic.
We're all humanity. We're humanity sitting here together because we know there's something savagely wrong. That is why we're sitting here right now. We know that there's something savagely wrong. And it's not just in our country, it's effects in other countries that are even worse. And just think for 1 minute we are not in that scenario. But just because there's not violence on the streets, that is what we are in. And that is what you need to unite. Yeah. I can't say enough. You guys are all from Coventry. You need to unite. And you need to make this happen.
When we were in Birkenhead years ago, the night before we did the Birkenhead thing, which was outrageous really 4 years ago, right, okay? Because the whole point was there were different people. So you had people like, good friends of mine, Roger Hayes is a good friend of mine, okay? He's a brave geezer. I stood with him face to face with the police, surrounded by police in courts all over this country and in Ireland, face to face, and he won't bottle it, right? Veronica Chapman is a genius, right? But completely, these people don't necessarily get on with each other. So when you sit in a room with some of the people, they don't get on, right? And they row, right? Because that's human politics, right? So when we all sat in the hotel the night before, you had people that were very, very powerful characters who don't necessarily agree with what other people are doing, okay? But I said, listen, as long as we were at a book, and the first page of that book would say what? Justice and fairness. We all agreed on that. We're all agreed on justice and fairness. Right, okay? Let's move to the second page. Now, again, Brian Gerrish has run off in some direction. Roger's run. But as long as we can all go back to the first page, right? And that's basically what we're dealing with. We're dealing with, look, first page politics. No matter what the difference of opinion, and we think he's doing that for that reason, and is he a good man in his art? You know what I mean? Well, okay, well, let's go back to the first page then, and try and start it again. And that's, we're the numbers now.
To a certain extent, that's what it does come down to things falling apart.
Yeah.
Well, it's what's right, isn't it? It's what's right, isn't it? You know, there's a right thing and a wrong thing to do, and we've been doing the wrong thing all this time, and now we really do need to take the power back and hit them where it hurts, because we have got this sorted, and you will have full backup, completely full backup. As soon as you've got a few more numbers, we'll have John Hurst up, we'll have a few others up, we'll have, I don't know, a couple days of training.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we get the interest in it, we can say, right, grand jury, John will come up. He can train people to take statements, right? We can get the grand jury in here, and we plan it for a. It's not just willy-nilly.
I spoke to the local court, right?
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for that date. The minute I find out, and whoever leaves their details, John Hurst, speak to you, plus of the other guys that are local to you, and say, let's just do it.
Yeah, that's right. Let's do it.
The thing is, this is what I said to the court staff, and they're sort of coming round to my way of thinking. I said, you know what it is? I said, you're such a giant McDonald's, a giant corporation, and all I'm saying to you is, I want an Angus burger like Burger King, but you can't do that. Okay, well, why don't I kill the bird, the Angus meat, and bring it to you, and all you've got to do is flip it. That's the last bit you've got to do, and just put it in the burger, and the rest I'll do. I'll do the eating, I'll do everything else. And you know what, when you speak it down to something so simple, people resonate with it, and then they just think, yeah, you know what, I can start to figure out what you're trying to do, and say, look, I'm not trying to do any rocket science, I'm not trying to do anything dodgy, I'm just trying to replicate exactly what you do. But if it's okay for you, why is it not good enough for me?
And it's confidence again, because when you go forward, you've got to go forward with confidence. Now, if I've got a mate who's a world champion pool player, right, I can go around and say, oh, you fancy yourself at pool? Okay, do you want to game with my mate? Yeah? Okay, it's not me, right? Again. And we've all got mates in this game, right, who are world champion pool players, as far as I'm concerned. So I'll tell you what, some of the people we got in this game, they haven't got a chance. You know, we had a criminal barrister in the court with us in Nottingham a couple of weeks ago, and he was astounded. You know, I've got a criminal barrister in Bristol who's astounded at how much criminality is going on inside the civil courts in this country. He's absolutely gobsmacked because he's a criminal barrister. So we have got people, you know, and some of them are inside the establishment. And if we're able to use the establishment against itself, we've really won the game. We've just got to go forward with confidence and forward in numbers.
I mean, the interesting thing is that obviously my background, whoever's actually searched me off, is more around planning. That's where I discovered that it was all a bit of con. But if you actually look this up, and where I've done a lot of research around this, and I don't know if you guys saw, I think it was last Tuesday or Monday, I think it was about the planning program that was on Channel 4. It was about people going to demolish their houses and they build giant houses, and they were like the worst lawbreakers in the world. But they were saying, well, actually, we didn't do jack. All we said is, we bought this property, you keep saying you're the council, but hang on, if you didn't pay jack to this, why am I listening to you?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to do because what I pay for. And what it was is there was entrepreneurial people, and there were just people who just had almost like artists. I just thought, you know what, I don't want to just paint this blank canvas, magnolia. I'm going to do the most beautifulest drawing ever, and they did great stuff. And I'd say, for anybody, look up on Channel 4 and their iPlayer version, whatever it is, And it's very interesting that average Joe is starting to twig in a different realm that something's wrong.
Yeah.
And if you actually look at that program, there's a bloke with a castle who built a castle and put a bale of hay around it. Guess whose face I'm doing?
Right.
I'm on that now, so.
Inside pocket.
No, I lost
When
it
you
here.
go to
I've got it
that
here.
guy's house, it is a masterpiece. It's nothing like this. Every little thing is. You can't believe it was built in the last 10 years.
Well, I'll tell you what, on them same lines, I don't know if any of you know who Rob Bollocks or Rob Lennox is, if you know who he is. You know Rob, right?
Nice guy.
Rob,
Really
Rob's
nice.
a brilliant researcher, right? He's brilliant, right, okay? So what Rob's done is Rob's taken the council to task in Wigan, right? Now what he did was, they took his missus, who's Lithuanian or she's from Eastern Europe, right, to court for council tax. So what Rob's done, and this is where we are with all this, mate. Rob's really clever bloke, like, yeah? So Rob's gone there and he said, right, who is taking my missus to court? She's from Eastern Bloc country. She thinks in a police state, it's the police who are the criminals, right? So always remember that. If you're in a police state, the police are the criminals, not the public, right? And so she's frightened. Who are you? So they said, oh, Wigan Borough Council have taken her to court for, along these lines, Wigan Borough Council have taken her to court for a council tax. So he said, well, I've checked out Wigan Borough Council and they were disformed or disbanded in 2006. Because every time you see the word borough, it means a franchise, like McDonald's, right? So if it's a borough, it's a franchise. So he said, well, it's Wigan Council. So he said, right, well, Wigan Council, we've gone in 2008 or whatever. So who are these characters trying to take us to court?
Guys,
for
can
not
I
being
just
council?
interrupt 1 second? If you're interested in the peacekeeper bit and you want to take on that obligation, can you please fill in your email and your number and all that so that I can get in contact with you directly, yeah? I'll pass it round.
So Rob's question in court, the council, who are they? Who are Wigan Borough Council? Well, because I've looked at Company's House and they were gone in 2006.
And I think Rob actually figured out that there's about 8 different versions.
Yeah, well, that's right.
8.
So in the end, he said, right, so if some Russian gangster said that he was now Wigan Council and I should give him my council tax, would you expect me to send him a cheque for my council tax? And he goes, well, of course not. He said, well, who are they? What's their company name? Who the fuck are these people? Well, you know they are. They're the council. No, I don't know who they are. Give me their company number. And this is how much it's all been uprooted.
On a very basic thing. You don't have to be very clever.
No.
You just have to ask the most stupidest question like a child,
Yeah.
and it will all fall to pieces. In fact, here was quite an interesting one where even I was summoned for a let property, and I thought, well, I'll have a bit of fun with this. So I just wrote back and I said, oh, are you happy with the claim? And they went, yeah, well, either way, you're summoned to Coventry County Court. Okay, fine. So I actually just turned up and I said, okay, I've only just been over to the council. And they said, and I said, well, they've just told me that this name that you keep talking about, I have to remember a name, terrible names, somebody Evans. And I said, oh, that's really nice, but you keep saying that I owe money, well, Evans keeps saying that I owe money. Well, I've just been to the council and they've said she hasn't worked here for months. So, sorry, why am I here? Because you've just told me that Evans said that I owe money. Evans doesn't work here. So who is actually telling me that I owe money? Because it ain't Evans, because clearly she hasn't worked here for months. And they said, well, it's up to you, but you know, you're going to get a judgment order. I said, no. She's a very young kid, and I said, look, it's very simple. And I said, I goes, you're young, you know the law, I know jack, I know nothing. However, I know there has to be a man or a woman that has to make a claim. But I've just told you, from the own organisation of which you work for, that Evans don't work here for months. So why am I here? And I said, I'm going to leave it with you, and I'm going to go, and if I receive a judgment to say that I owe anything today, I owe anything, even 10p, whatever it is, 1p, whatever it is, I'm instantly, tomorrow morning, I'm going to turn up to the police station and say somebody's committed fraud. In a court. Because I warned you, I told you, but you just chose to ignore me. You chose to commit fraud. And I said, well, it's up to you, here's my telephone number. If you ring me at 5 o'clock today to say that happened, I'll be there tomorrow and I'll add your name in as well. And she rang me 4:45 and said, we've just thrown out the case, they're going to chop and change, re-serve you. Excellent, thank you very much. Restart the whole thing. But the instant question that I always wanted to know was, anybody here with council problems, anybody here with council tax issues, anybody here with Mrs. Evans, none of them are valid. And they've been going on for months. And all I got a letter back was saying, well, at what point are you going to change this? And they said, oh, well, I've contacted the department and they'll change it. But the most interesting thing is, everything for the last few months has been invalid, but nobody's noticed. Nobody has noticed.
Yeah. Well, nobody does, because when they get a judgment, all they do is they read the end, and they don't read the actual content of it. Same as with tonsing, right? So, I mean, it's the same with the police, right? If ever you have a police officer in the box, I mean, you know, I'm not having to go at police officers, but they don't know the law, right? Which they should do, but the first question you ask a police officer, if ever you cross-examine him, right, the very first thing you do, and it will close the court down, right? Are you qualified to make a legal determination? Now, before he opens his mouth, because he might think he is.
Got no battery
right?
power left
If he
now.
says he is, it means he's a lawyer.
Got no battery
right?
left anyway.
If he says he isn't, then why are you here? Because he's made a
Yeah, we're trying to
determination that
get
you're
it to wind up
backlighted, and you're in court, right? So the prosecutor and the judge
They try and send out, I can't process a video that long.
I can do it, mate.
Oh, can you? I'll get it on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'll
Does it sound alright?
I don't know, I haven't listened to it yet,
But we now know more than they
Come out
do,
with
so
it,
which is empowering, you know, but it's got to be taken that we use it properly.